Hello viewers of The Pioneer, how are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As always, as the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. In a moment, we will convey a very remarkable development related to the war. Bradley model armored vehicles provided to the Ukrainian army entered into an incredible struggle with the Russian tanks. Moreover, Bradley armored vehicles managed to survive this struggle. There is also a very remarkable development regarding the Wagner mercenary group, which has not been on the agenda for a long time. Let's examine these developments. And a small reminder, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports prepared by the Pioneer team and our reports on the agenda. I also read all your comments on our videos. Please continue to express your opinions about our content in the comments. Not to say that I'm an AI, because I'm not. Let's start if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. Footage of Bradley armored vehicles under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces engaging in one-on-one battle with the T-90 tank of the Russian army was recently released. In the images in question, it is seen that the Bradley armored vehicles left the Russian army's tank in a very difficult situation with successive attacks. According to the reports of local sources, the Bradley armored vehicles of the Ukrainian army were using the Bushmaster automatic cannon during this attack. We cannot fully determine whether the tank of the Russian army was destroyed. However, as far as we understand from the images, shots made with Bradley armored vehicles are quite effective. Recently, a similar video on this subject was published, and the Ukrainian sources reported that one T-90 tank of the Russian army was destroyed. Of course, this is a very remarkable and disturbing situation for the Russian army and the Russian military industry, because Bradley-type armored vehicles normally have a very little chance against a tank. However, Russian tanks cannot fully respond to these Bradley armored vehicles. This is clearly and evident in the images we mentioned. The tank in question is one of the most modern tanks in the use of the Russian armed forces. Therefore, this tank is expected to show great success against an armored vehicle. However, the failure to show this success brings the speculation about the Russian tanks back to the agenda. As we have shared with you in our previous reports, some military experts claim that the Russian tanks are produced for parades. As we've shared with you in our previous reports, some military experts claim that the Russian tanks are produced for parades, not for war. There is an illusion here. The Russian army threatens the whole world by organizing parades from time to time. Russian tanks are one of the most famous players of these parades. Another striking detail is that the claims of Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, have once again been refuted, because the Russian leader often claimed that Russian weapons were superior to Western weapons and that the Western weapons were no longer as reliable as before. However, as it is seen, Western weapons and vehicles continue to maintain superiority over the vehicles and weapons of the Russian army. The superiority of the Ukrainian armed forces with Bradley-type armored vehicles seems to have caused a panic in the Russian armed forces and the Russian military industry, because according to the allegations, the Russian military industry has now started research and developments for further strengthening of the Russian tanks and increasing armor. As we mentioned, Russian tanks were claimed to be very powerful. So how will these tanks, which cannot even succeed against armored vehicles, bring the Russian army the success they want? This is of course not possible. Let's even point this out. The Ukrainian army does not only hunt Russian tanks with Bradley-type armored vehicles. At the same time, the Ukrainian army's kamikaze drones also caused heavy damage to the Russian tanks. According to reports from some sources, drones are one of the biggest reasons for the Russian army's tank losses. Unmanned aerial vehicles have so far managed to penetrate the armor of the Russian tanks, and many times before. Unmanned aerial vehicles have so far managed to penetrate the armor of Russian tanks many times. As we've mentioned, this is a proof that the Russian tanks are not as strong as they are said to be. According to reports, the video in question was recorded around Avdiivka, where the Russian army continues its offensive. As it is known, Avdiivka is located on the Donetsk front line. So what is the description often made about the Donetsk front line? Tank graveyard. We think that we will hear a lot of news about this issue in the coming days. From this point of view, we can say that the armored vehicles and ammunition support provided by the Ukrainian army is vital importance. As long as this support continues, the Russian army will not be able to make further progress in Ukraine. Another noteworthy issue is related to the Wagner Group. As you know, not much information about the Wagner Group has been in our reports for a long time. With the failed coup attempt carried out by the Wagner Group, the group was liquidated. However, some personnel of the group were assigned within the Russian army. However, recently some soldiers belonging to the Wagner Group came to the agenda with a very remarkable development. Wagner soldiers are wanted by the Russian army for punishment. The reason for the punishment of the Wagner soldiers is quite remarkable. In our previous reports, we have often told you about the developments regarding the alcohol problem in the Russian army. However, alcohol may not be the only addiction in the Russian army, because Russian commanders allegedly started trading banned substances. Moreover, Russian commanders allegedly sell these substances to the Russian soldiers. You did not hear it wrong. Russian commanders are selling banned substances to the Russian soldiers under their command. We don't think that they realize how big a threat this is, because recently members of the former Wagner Group detected that these commanders were selling banned substances, and this was not a detection. According to reports, former Wagner Group personnel also photographs of the commanders. These commanders were captured by Wagner personnel and handed over to the war leadership, but this is where the problem began. According to the claims of Wagner personnel, this incident was not limited to the commanders. According to reports, the commanders formed a smuggling network. In other words, they formed a gang. Again, according to the allegations, this is the first link in a rather large criminal chain. However, the Russian war leadership did not respond to this call of the Wagner personnel. They decided to put Wagner personnel on trial. Wagner personnel saved themselves by escaping from the army. However, in doing so, they are also published a video to report the fact. They belong to the 331st Guards Parachute Regiment on the Luhansk front line. They will allegedly continue to fight this situation. This is how we learn that the problems within addictions in the Russian army are not only related to soldiers. This situation will lead to bigger problems in the coming days. So, will the Russian war leadership take any measures in this regard? We don't think this is very likely. Do you think the operations of the Ukrainian army with Bradley armored vehicles are effective? Do you think that more Bradley armored vehicles should be provided to the Ukrainian army? Do you think the Russian war leadership will take any action on the smuggling network uncovered by Wagner personnel? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.